Hello, welcome down the slope as ever. I'm Ewan, and once again I am joined by Liam and Greg, and for the second time in 3 weeks, Harry's patched us. And we've also been joined this week by Greg McEwen from Hibs. And Greg, do you want to talk to us maybe a bit about your role within the club and how you came to fill that role?
Of course. First of all, thanks for having me. Good to meet you guys. So obviously I joined the club around about 16 months ago in the capacity of Head of Marketing and Brand Partnerships. It's clear to say that when I joined the club I didn't foresee a global pandemic coming down the road. So it's been a very interesting 16 months to date, but thoroughly enjoying it. Great challenge, great to work with Jack and the team and the rest of the staff off the field and try and keep things moving forward. But going back to my sort of football upbringing, I'm a Fifer, so born and brought up in a village called Carden. So my early days in football and my sort of introduction to football was in junior football. So going to watch Dundonald Bluebell. With my old man, so followed them around about Fife and wider Scotland, and then when I was old enough to get on the buses myself and go to games, I would find myself at Starch Park watching Raith Rovers. Had a lot of great memories there, and actually one of my all-time favourite European nights was watching Raith Rovers, but it was actually at Easter Road, fun enough, when they played Bayern Munich in the UEFA Cup back in the mid-90s. Oliver Kahn, Papan, Klinsmann, et al. So that was a fantastic night under the lights at Easter Road. Obviously, many great nights for Hibs under the lights at Easter Road, but it was a very different one, that one. But yeah, been involved in football since a young age, kidded myself on that I could play the game, end up playing decent level, youth level. Was on the books at Dundee United as a youngster, and then had to make a decision on what I was going to do, as every one of us more than likely has had to do at some point. I ended up going into athletics, ran for Scotland for a few years, then went into full-time work and couldn't do the training to keep that going, and athletics was never going to pay the bills for me. It was never going to be a Mo Farah to make that level of money. So my career was the one that I always focused on, and through my school life I had a PE teacher called Ian Donnelly, and his father was a journalist for Radio Tay, a famous journalist called Dick Donnelly. So he invited me up to Tannadice to watch Dundee United Dunfermline one miserable winter's night, and how he actually found the ability to write a thousand words on a game that was absolutely dire at 0-0. But he introduced me to the management and the players after the game, and I thought, you know what, this isn't actually that bad. So I went into sports journalism, done an HNC and HND in sports journalism, and then went down the route of getting experience rather than going through uni. Ended up worked at Scottish Television whilst at uni, and went there on a longer term contract when I was done. And then they went through changes, and from there I ended up into the sports marketing world. Worked on brands like Coca-Cola, were my first brand that I worked on, managing all of their work in Scotland. Took in World Cups and European Championships with Coca-Cola back then. So that was at an agency called Maximise. And then it was a very, very small business, so the opportunity for growth was pretty limited. So I got the chance to join another agency in Glasgow called Material. And there I worked on Tennent's Lager sponsorship of the national team to start with, and then they made the move into the Glasgow rival Celtic and Rangers. So we were behind a lot of the work that they did. Bank of Scotland were another client, so that saw us work on Olympic Games. I was seconded to the Olympic Torch Tour for the period that travelled around Scotland. So I played a big role in that. And then I was also seconded to the 2014 Commonwealth Games for a spell to help sell certain tickets for events that were maybe a bit slower than others. So it's given me quite a breadth of knowledge of sport over my years. And And then I got approached by a good friend of mine who hired me at that agency, who had moved on. He had went to Celtic and then found his way up to the R&A in St Andrews, and they asked me if I would go up to the R&A and become the marketing manager for the Open. So it's one of the world's biggest events, never mind sporting events. So it was just a fantastic opportunity. So I went up there, worked on 4 Opens, so 3.5, 4 years up in St Andrews, and it was great. Absolutely loved it. And then one of the gents that I met during that role was is the non-exec director, Archie Payton, who alerted me to a couple of roles that were going at the club. And we had a lot of conversation. And selfishly, I said I didn't want one of them, I wanted both. So fortunately, I managed to convince Ron in my second interview that was the best way to go, and Ron gave me the call and offered me the position, and just absolutely sold me his vision, because that was key for me. Having been on the periphery of Scottish football for so long, to make that step into it from an organisation like the R&A, then it had to be right. And Ron's vision for me is absolutely ideal. He's not one of these owners who get carried away, come in and say, we're going to win the league, we're going to be in the Champions League or anything like that. I think he's very, very sensible in his approach, and everything that he's got in his mindset is absolutely achievable. And to be honest, it's where Hibs belong. So I just want to play my part in trying to make that happen. I always say this, that we are just the custodians of the club at the minute, and we are just there to do the job as well as we can, hopefully better than those that were there before, and then just keep that challenge going of driving it forward. And then when we go, somebody else comes in and takes it up to the next level. It's always about progression. So yeah, that's a bit of a short summary of my footballing background and how I ended up at Hibs, but thoroughly enjoying it, and the challenge that's there.
Cool. Thanks very much for that, Greg. That's really interesting. Can I just ask, I guess we've got quite a lot of kind of younger listeners that are listening to this podcast, and a lot of them are maybe young people who aspire to a career in football or in broader sport. What advice would you give a younger Greg when you were kind of starting out in that journey? Because you mentioned, you went and did an HND and decided actually the way to go was to get experience rather than go through the university route. What one bit of advice would you give yourself as you're kind of starting out on that journey?
Great question, and I think the first one that these youngsters will be asking is, what's an HND? Because I don't even know if they're still in existence.
I know what that is, Greg.
Yeah, the ask other thing, I dropped out of one not that long ago.
Yeah, I was by one. So.
There's many different routes into the industry, and it's just give yourself as much versatility as you can, and put as many strings on your bow as you can, and get the experience. That's the vital thing, and build your network. And the biggest thing I would say is never shut any doors, because you never know when you can go back to that. It's a big thing that I've always tried to do in my life, is to build relationships and make as many friends as possible. And I think when I sit in the chair that I'm in today, then it's absolutely been worthwhile, because I've called upon a lot of these friendships for advice, for mentorship or business, and bringing them into the club. Because Scotland's a goldfish bowl, and it just gets smaller. It's absolutely incredible. But yeah, like when I was going through my education, everybody, like, to go into journalism, we're all going to Napier, and it was the course to go to. And I just thought, well, if I go to Napier, I'm one of a number, and there's no guarantee that you're then getting a job. You've got like hundreds of people going for the one job when you come out. So fortunately for me, I managed to skip the queue and go down that experience route, and it's worked out for me. But like, bizarrely, I'm in a world of like commercial and business management and sports marketing that I never studied. I studied how to be a journalist. So there's no trade secrets. I've always just tried to apply a common sense mentality. I'm a football fan like everybody else, and I always just think, what would I like to see? What would the fans like to see? Rather than complicating it, I think there's a lot of people out there that absolutely overcomplicate it and try and get clever in messaging or anything like that. And hopefully what you guys see now from the club is that it's quite an open and transparent communication that we try and give to the fans, because it's important that you take people on that journey, and you just need to be honest. But yeah, advice-wise, just keep all options open, never shut any doors, and give yourself as much experience as you can.
I think that's great advice. A question, I guess, about your sort of career journey then, just in terms of that move that you made to come to Hibs. So the RNA, for those who don't know, is probably one of the oldest kind of sporting organisations in the United Kingdom, and it's a very kind of prestigious organisation in the world of golf, maybe the most prestigious organisation in the world of golf. So to go from the RNA to Hibs, how big a decision was that for you? Now, clearly Archie Payton, for those who don't know, is kind of one of the non-exec board members, but I understand it as one of the key guys who kind of helped broker the Ron Gordon deal. So it's clearly quite an influential person at the club. Was that a really difficult decision for you for you to leave the RNA to come to Hibs? It
was, yeah. I'm not going to lie and say no. It was the only job I've ever wanted. I'm not going to give that. Like when I joined RNA, I genuinely thought that was me for life. Because everything that you've just outlined, Liam, it's such a prestigious organisation. It's the only global governing body in Scotland in sport. The rights holders of golf, the governing body. I love my golf. My granddad taught me when I was a kid, and it just had all the makings of that's it, that's me there for life, and they look after you well. But just like I said before, you never close any doors, so you never know what the future's going to hold. But for me, it was all about career and career, opportunity, and my family were the three things that were in the melting pot. So even though I worked in St Andrews, I lived in Edinburgh. So I was doing that daily commute. I've got 2 young kids. The world of golf is obviously different. The Open's 1 week of the year, so it's not every week. So it's a very different landscape in that sense. So there's a lot to weigh up. And I think the key for me making that move from the RNA to Hibs was the opportunity that Ron gave me in terms of merging those roles. If that hadn't been the case, would I still have made the move? Probably not. I'm a guy who thrives on a challenge. And I didn't want to come down and do the same marketing plan as you would see at Aberdeen or Motherwell or Hearts or Celtic. I wanted to come in and try and do things differently. I'd experienced enough in sport that there were many things that could be done differently. So I wanted that opportunity, and fortunately, Ron agreed with what I was saying in the interview process and saw that in me, and hopefully I'm starting to repay some of that over the last 16 months.
Yeah, and Greg, would I be right in saying, so obviously you joined 16 months ago, so you would have been, when you came in, we would have had the Community Foundation as the front, on the front of the shirt, and then obviously this year we've had the great Thank You NHS initiative as well, so that's quite unusual in sort of modern day sport, and especially football. Like that front of the shirt seen as such a massive, probably one of the biggest incomes outside the fans. Like, is it just how good has that been to be involved in, with like obviously the charity side of it, but it's been quite was it a strange environment to come into when that space of the shirt maybe wasn't making that much money in comparison to what you'd maybe expect?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think so. I started in December, and that's really the time that you're looking to try and secure a shirt sponsor for the following year, because your kits are in manufacture. So ideally, you want to be doing that print at source to save you cost. So it was really, when I came in, it was almost like they needed that front of shirt sponsor the week before. So you were thrown right in at the deep end, and obviously the noises of a pandemic coming through, there was no money really circulating in the sponsorship world. So there was a few that tried to see an opportunity in offering a below value cost, but that just wasn't going to happen. I'm a great believer in you stick to the value of your inventory, and because as soon as you go lower, then it's going to be a lot harder to try and build that back up. So there was a lot of discussion about what we could do. So when the idea came that we could put the Thank You NHS on, we moved very, very quickly to do that, because as you guys all know, there's a great history in being the first of a number of things at the club, and that was definitely one that we wanted to lead on, not just in a Scottish sense but in a world sense. So when we were able to get the green light and make that happen, we turned that around pretty quickly. And I think as a standalone piece of activity, that probably took the club to corners of the world that had never been seen before. So the value of that partnership is way beyond a financial value. I think as a brand, I think we've made a lot of second club fans through this. And when you look at the list of countries that our shirts have been sold in, it's remarkable. So it was fantastic to get it done. We never lost any real revenue because of the contributions from some well-known fans to make that happen, which was great. And it was a fantastic gesture by those. And it's went down as a great shirt. The depth to it, working with the guys at the NHS and the Edinburgh Lothian Health Foundation has been great. They're such a passionate bunch of people that do a fantastic job. And I think it was just earlier this week that we updated the donations to like just over £36,000 so far this season. And our initial hope had been to raise a good bit more than that, but we thought we'd have had fans back in by now. We thought we could have been doing events and more fundraising activity, but we've been severely restricted in what we can do. But it's not one that's just going to be ditched at the end of the season as if it's been a commercial partnership, because it's not. It's a longer term partnership, and we'll absolutely show our thanks to the NHS and key workers long after that campaign comes to an end.
I think myself and Greg were just speaking just a couple of weeks ago about how I think we want to get our hands on this year's kits. Like, I think we're all sort of an age now where maybe we don't buy the tops every year, and we don't have kids to buy for that. But it's one of them that I think a lot of people will probably want to buy, and then so in 15 years' time you say, oh well, and you're telling someone this is and I think at the time it felt good. I think Liam and Greg would agree it was our club that done it. We were the first, like you said, we were the first people doing it. At the time, I think it really hit home, and well, I guess we all hoped we'd be in a much better place a year down the line than what we are.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and hopefully there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes it seems further away than we would like, but it definitely feels as though it's getting closer. I think when you watch like the Carabao Cup final yesterday and you see the fans in, then it starts to get that a little bit more real. And then the Euros this summer, and we'll see fans there. So we're absolutely working to fans coming back in the stadium in the summer. That's absolutely our plan, and that's what we're working to. And no disrespect to the Community Foundation or the NHS partnership, but it's my head that's on the line for a commercial front of shirt sponsor as well. So it's long overdue that we return to a commercial partner in the front of shirts as well.
Just on the subject of fans, just before we came on air, Hibs announced that it's now 3,000 season tickets that have been sold. Just how massive is that for the club? Obviously, that the campaign was launched last week and it's just taken off.
It's really difficult to explain how important the season ticket campaign is. I think you touched on the front of shirt value. The single biggest contribution to the club budget is season tickets. And I think you can tell that I think that's only two clubs that are out selling season tickets at the minute, ourselves and Dundee United. Everybody's been playing a little bit of season ticket roulette. Nobody's wanted to go first because it's the hardest campaign that any club's going to have to do for a number of years, because none of us have had a fan in the door. And we're all really aware of the gratitude that we have to the fans for what they've stood by us for the last year. To have 11,000 in a year of a pandemic with no certainty of getting into the stadium was just insane, way beyond what I would have expected. And personally, it just confirmed how big a club Hibs are, with such a passionate fan base, which was great. I always knew that it had a hardcore fan base, but to that number, was just tremendous. So this year, as I say, it was such a difficult campaign to pull together. You're never going to please everybody. I know that. Everybody's different. Everybody's got different situations. Everybody's got families or jobs or other commitments. And we spent a long, long time going through that season ticket campaign of what can we do for these fans? Because I understand a lot of fans will be looking at, like, can we do refunds? And we always said up until the 29th of July we would give refunds. Because after that money was invested into the player pot. So hopefully fans are happy with where we're currently sitting and can see the benefit of where that money's gone. And it'll be the same again this year, that anybody that buys up until the start of the season absolutely can, like, if there's anything that happens of a third strain or whatever, they can take that money back by the end of July. But anything after that, then we'll be looking to invest in the club. And it's just that there's so much more to the season ticket money than just coming into a game. You really are investing into the club, and that's why in the season ticket video, when you've got Jack's words, every single seat helps him do what he's trying to do with that playing squad. That's not just a marketing slogan. It goes back to what I said earlier. We're just trying to be open and transparent. That there's absolutely nothing hidden behind this campaign. Every pound that comes in will just get invested into that club. So to have 3,000 in less than a week is just it's incredible. It's ahead of where we were this time last year by a good bit. So we're off to a good start. We're under no illusions. We know it's going to be hard, and we'll just need to see where we can get to come July, August time. But for me, it's a massive thanks to every single fan, not just the 3,000 that have bought, but every one of the 11,000 that bought last year, everyone that's bought a replica shirt, everybody that's bought a pay-per-view game, everybody that's bought an item in the shop. Like, every single penny has been hugely appreciated this year, because we know how hard it's been for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak for myself and say, I think you could just put out a post that says season tickets are on sale, and 5 minutes later I'd have bought mine. Like it's just sort of how it goes with Hibs at times for me. But
I think there's a large. I think I've had this conversation with Ron many times about what I think we can get to in terms of a number come the start of the season, and for me, that there's an absolute hardcore of not far off 5-figure number who would buy because it's Hibs. I think when you look back over the years to the amount of fans that supported them in the Championship, so from a relegation season and the numbers that still turned up, there's not many clubs that have that.
There was a few years kind of going back now, kind of in the sort of, I guess, Calderwood, sort of Fenland, Butcher era, which we prefer not to talk about too much on this podcast if we can help it. But there was a period where the numbers kind of dwindled in season tickets, and we were sort of probably down around 7,000-8,000, and I think that was sort of played out in the team that was on the park in some respects, because actually the quality of the players that we were able to bring in and attract could be directly correlated back to the number of season tickets we were selling. But obviously, since the Scottish Cup win, numbers have swelled. They've stayed pretty consistently high. And to be honest, the last 5 years, although sometimes, that doesn't always feel like it, it's been a pretty good period to be a Hibs fan, really, the last 5 years. The engagement of the club's good, season ticket numbers are good. Generally, we're signing players that when we sign them, we go, oh, I've heard of that guy, quite like look at him, or something about him. So it's been a good period for the last 5 years. I just wanted to just touch on, Greg, because you mentioned Carabao, and I wanted to talk a little bit about your role in sponsorships. And clearly there's been quite a lot of, I would say, activity in the commercial front over the last 12 months in terms of sponsorships and link-ups and partnerships with other organisations. And I just wondered, is that kind of something that we're seeing as a result of the pandemic and reduced income in other areas that we're announcing more partnerships, or actually are these kind of partnerships that we're setting up to help us sort of with future growth and take the club to the next level, I guess?
Great question, Liam. When I first came into the club, the first thing I'd done was an evaluation of all the inventory that we had and how we actually sold it and at what rate. And for me, it was all below the market value. We had a lot of boards, banners in the stadium that were actually inactive. So the example I'll give is like the Leaving Car Company banners that used to hang off the side of the East Stands. I think the contract had ended like a year earlier, but I just couldn't understand that. So there was a massive shift come the end of the season to try and rectify that, and that every board in the stadium would be a paid for board. It would be at the right value, and having a better blend of the local businesses, national businesses, but also trying to attract international businesses. So I'll go back to that I mentioned Ron's vision. Ron's vision includes being one of the top 3 brands in Edinburgh. And for me, that's absolutely achievable. So the only way that you can do that is by attracting bigger, reputable brands to the club. And then in turn, you'll flush out a few more. So there was a big evaluation piece, pulled together a tiered structure to our properties to try and give it some shape. So there would be an entry level valuation to come in at the minimum, all the way up through suppliers, partners, patrons, and then principal partner. So therefore, if anybody ever come to the club with a pocket of money, straight away you can tell them what they were going to get. Certainly as part of a shopping list, and then you would engage in the bespoke partnership assets because everybody wants something a bit different, clearly. But the big word that I always use is partnership. It's not all one way. And that goes back to when I was offered the job, and the title I was offered had the word sales in it, and I've never ever seen myself as a salesman. But what I would pride myself on is building partnerships, because that's given the indication that there's actual longevity to that. So working through a lot of the existing contracts now that we're going through renewals, I've been stressing that word partnership and making sure that our partners get the value back. We've seen the benefit of that because we've actually had partners that are now going up through the rungs of the ladder and actually starting to invest more in the club because they're feeling that engagement. And over the course of the last 12 months, I have to praise like the team of Murray Milligan and Aidan Gorman. We've brought in 27 new partners in the year of a pandemic, which is just insane. That's a pandemic where you're not able to have one-to-one meetings face-to-face. This is partnerships that have been done over the phone or over Zoom calls or anything like that. So we have had a big year commercially, but that's set the bar for us to now kick on. And I think you could see that from the roles that we put out last week, that's us now in the market for another commercial sales and partnership manager, because we're now bursting at the seams that retention's far easier than sell. So look after those that are with the club, develop that, build in more inventory and bring more people to the party, then it's only going to go one way for the club. And hopefully the foundations are now there, and then we've had some really good candidates applying, and I look forward to getting some in for the start of next season and kicking on. But the big thing for me is it's a big club. Hibs are a huge club. And I don't know if it's been a mindset thing in the past or maybe if it's just got lost somewhere, but I just didn't see that belief at times. And I think now, like, we will never undervalue any inventory or any asset. We'll make sure that we get the best money for the club as we possibly can. So yeah, it's been a great job, and hopefully it's just a start though.
See, like you're saying, I mean, you said about the 27 partnerships. I think there was a period of time when it felt like we were announcing a new partner every week. And see, to be honest, it's again, as fans, it's stuff that you're like, well, that can only be a good thing, right? And I think probably even now, I think as fans, maybe compared to maybe 10 years ago, I guess the business side of football, fans probably care a lot more about that as well. And I'm curious, I mean, some of the companies that we've tied in with are big companies like Carabao, Manscaped. Manscaped was one that I was like, oh, like they're massive, like, and I think
I have to say that was my favourite response to any social media tweet this year. Some of the responses to that was brilliant. I loved how my favourite line was that the next signing was going to be Andre Arshavin, so that was my favourite. Brilliant.
That actually ties in nicely to what I was going to ask. Is there one that particularly stands out for yourself? Maybe doesn't need, obviously not financial or anything, but just one that you thought that's big, and like you're saying, trying to get us into that next level. Maybe I guess like a favourite partnership that we've managed to get done over the last year.
Say just one. I'm proud of a few things that we've done in the department. Like starting from like young Aidan, who looks after the sort of the player sponsorships and the stones and tiles and that side of the business. Like he's increased that, which is fantastic. And then all the way from the ground level partnerships right through. And we've had to be really creative this year, obviously, because a lot of your normal inventory would be match tickets or hospitality and that sort of thing. So you have to be smart with your assets and the delivery. So the seat kill banners, for example, we were adamant that those were going to get done in club colours. I didn't want a mix of various different colours around the stadium. It wouldn't have looked that great. So I was proud of the way that we managed to succeed in delivering that. That gave us opportunity to work with, like for me, a very big and reputable brand in LNEA, and bringing them in the door at Hibernian. We've had a lot of good conversations with them to hopefully continue that partnership in some capacity. Carabao, you touched on, great brand. And in keeping with our mindset of wanting to do things differently, they're a bit of an interrupter in that marketplace. They like to be on the edge, they like to be edgy, and some of the content that they've done has been really good with the players. I think Dre Wright, when he's finished playing, he could maybe be the host of Hibs TV, I think, the way that he's been going with that. And then like Manscaped was a great one. I think at the time that we tied in with Manscaped, there was 3 partners. There was us, San Francisco 49ers, and the other one escapes me, but like, you're not talking like low-level sponsorships. You were in there with the big boys. So that was great. Utilita's been a great partner of the club, and the fact that they've got their hub in Leith, and they're really big on the fan engagement and the community aspect. Eden Mill, I think what they've done recently with the activation and the match day spirit, I think that just, I think any fan that watches that, it absolutely epitomises where everybody's at, that they just can't wait to get back in.
Just jealous of them it's been. Just jealous.
So no, they're all great partners, and we've done a few really good evenings with them where we've done group sessions with the partners over Zoom, and just try to make them feel like valued, because they all are. As much as fans, it's really important that we have the partners on that journey. And like the big thing for me coming into this job was, just suppose for everybody, that I love watching the likes of Borussia Dortmund and how they go about their business, and how every Borussia Dortmund fan knows the values of the club. They know that the players are on that park giving their all, but they get brought so close to the club. The partners get brought so close to the club, and you do feel as one. And that's what I'm wanting to try and achieve with Hibs. I want to bring the fans as close as we possibly can. I want to bring partners as close as we can. I want to bring the ex-players as close as we can, because we all want the same thing. There's no difference in any of those categories. We all want the same thing, and that is success for Hibernian. So it's important that we bring everybody on that journey, and the partners have been great this year. I think we lost 2 at the start of the season, which was no fault of the clubs. It was simply down to COVID, and these businesses genuinely couldn't justify the spend. So I think that was a great start for us, that we've kicked on, and like there's still inventory there to be sold. We've got the shorts that we had a couple of offers for, but they didn't meet the market value, and we're going to have these big screens to start putting adverts on as well. So there's plenty of inventory coming that we can evolve and make as creative as we possibly can as well. So yeah, lots to be done. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We'll speak to your agent about a deal.
One of the key ways, Greg, that I guess some of those partners can activate those partnerships is through the match and the coverage that we've seen over the course of the season. can you tell us just a little bit more about, because I think when it was first mooted that we were going to have this TV programme that was going to cover the game and, you know, Ron Gordon's background in broadcasting, can you tell me just how much of an effort and how much of a collaboration that's been, pulling all the content together for the match, and how you've seen the product sort of playing out over the course of the season, and how you maybe even see it evolving into next season, if I can get a third question in?
It was a big challenge for every club. Didn't have a lot of time. There was actually, there still is, we're still active today. There's a WhatsApp group with all the SPFL clubs, and we were all in it together. So I think when you look at it, there's 11 out of the 12 clubs with the same streaming partner. And there were some clubs at the start didn't have their own TV channel, so like, how do we do this? So we were all learning from each other. So we wanted to try and deliver as strong a product as we possibly could, because we wanted to add as much value to the fans as we could. So I spent a lot of time, I touched on how I worked at STV back in the day, so I spent a lot of time going round the usual suspects in terms of a host, and it was important that we had someone with experience, because we'd never done this before, so we needed somebody who, if anything was to go wrong, which on occasion it has, that we've got somebody who's experienced and can manage that. So we had about half a dozen anchors, if you like, that we spoke to, and we ended up with David doing that job. And then we looked at the commentary. Cliff, for me, is very, very good. I think when you look at all the club channels and the club commentary, Cliff gets a lot of praise for being as neutral as he possibly can be, but you would still know that he's a Hibs fan, which is quite important when you're doing a pay-per-view element. We all know that there's certain commentators out there that are just one way, and it doesn't matter if you scored the best goal the world's ever seen, it was still a fluke. And Tam brings something else. Tam's just very honest, as I've said that word a few times, but with Tam, a spade's a spade. And if the team aren't performing, Tam's made sure that he's mentioned that. So that was all good. And then from a guest perspective, I wanted to try and keep it as varied as we possibly could. And I think there's only been a handful of people that we've had in on a multiple time. So like Joel's been a bit of a regular. We had Yogi Hughes. I should actually claim 10% of Yogi's fee. I think we kept him in the limelight to get him the job at Ross County. So he was great. I think the engagement with the fans was first class. And then we've got Mr. Rob Jones coming back on Saturday. And then we've got the one game after that, which we've got the pay-per-view opportunity with the Celtic game again, which is great. So it was hard to turn it all around in such a short space of time, and we don't have the resource to be able to put a production like that on ourselves. So there's a deal that's been done, which was done before this, with QTV, who cover 4 out of the 6 games for the SPFL. So since they were going to be doing the vast majority of games, I know Jack McGill and his team very well, and we come to an agreement with them that they would do the production element. So we hire a producer through them, we've got a director through them, and then our sound engineer. So it's almost like a third party comes in on a home game and delivers a show. And I'm not going to say every show's been great, but as I say, we've had a few wobbles along the line. Well documented one in particular. It was absolutely fine for me. Irvin's great Hibs man. And I think it's been great that we've been able to have all the guys on the show. I think Irvin was good. I think having Dougray Scott zooming in, we had Russell Latape from the beach in Barbados, dialing in fans from Arkansas and Sydney. Believe it or not, it's actually easier to dial in these guys from Arkansas and Sydney than it is to get an interview from the side of the pitch to the studio. That's just the remarkable nature of the technology that we have nowadays. But no, like the studio was a big thing for us. Even trying to find somewhere to have the studio, I wanted a pitch view, just to try and. I didn't want to do it outdoors like what a lot of clubs are doing, because you know fine well that the winter's coming and that's just not going to be great TV. So we took over the Community Foundation boardroom and made that into a makeshift studio. Where we take it next year, already in discussions about where we can move it. I think it was a pretty decent temporary solution to use that studio. And I think that over the course of the season, I think we've had a lot of positivity on the show, and I think it's one of the better ones that's out there in the league. But we're always wanting to improve, so we're looking at ways to improve it in all areas. So studio being part of it. One of the ideas was potentially to create a hospitality area and have the studio as part of it, and you're almost recreating a sort of Top Gear feel. I don't know how that would go down if it had a bad result right enough, but everything's on the table at the minute. So yeah, there'll be definite change for the start of next season, that's for sure. But yeah, very conscious that it's not been 100%, but hopefully it's been watchable in many occasions.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me the only real downside with the match has been, but it's been it's not the match issue. I think it's just the way that it's been. No matter who you're watching, it's just you're on a stream, so you're behind the play, and we've all got smartphones now, and whether it be Hibs, like we've got Hibs Twitter notifications on, or whether it be Sky Sports or Live Score or whoever, like you sometimes see the goal going beforehand, but I think that would be entirely out with the club's control. It's just the way that it works. But just
unless you want to stop conceding goals, that would be good, because that's the one thing.
Switch your notifications off after 80 minutes.
I had to switch them off early in the season. Yeah, it's like I'm going off my head, and my mum's like, "What's happened?" I'm like, "Oh, just wait and see." It's not great, but...
So just obviously talking about the match, and it is still going to be an element next season. How do you envisage that playing out in terms of alongside fans coming back? So do you think, I'm thinking maybe even beyond next season, is it something that the club want to keep when we can maybe, when COVID is, fingers crossed, a distant memory, that maybe if a season ticket holder can't access the game, they could watch it on their laptop or something? Is that an element that we'd be looking at?
Absolutely. You touched on yourself about Ron's background. So Ron's very passionate in this area. So we're a little bit limited with the broadcast deal, clearly, so that we would need to work on that. But starting off with next season, you would have seen that Sky made an announcement with the SPFL last week, so that the current deal is going to continue for another year. So next season, obviously, if we've got a limited capacity stadium, then it'll be a ballot for access. So if you're not able to get to the games, then you'll be able to watch the game virtually through the match. But even for those fans that are maybe still a little bit anxious about going into stadiums or any high footfall areas, then they've got the comfort that they can continue to watch the game from home. And then the pay-per-view element will be there as well. And I think to start with, there will probably not be any away fans, so you'll need to offer a pay-per-view element anyway. So again, it's another revenue stream. So next season will be following very similar path to the one that we've just had. But going beyond that, to start with, not just for the match, but for Hibs TV as a platform, needs to be redone. I think we've got good numbers on Hibs TV, but that's an area of growth, absolutely. I'd love to create more of a Netflix style platform, and I'm not talking about our documentaries or All or Nothing on Prime or anything like that, but even just little 10-minute behind the scene videos that I think that the fans would really enjoy. I think the club have maybe been guilty of having one voice in the past. And I think it would be great for fans to actually understand who staff are, what behind the scenes at HTC looks like, what behind the scenes at the club looks like in various different capacities, and just maybe even more magazine style shows. And part of the discussion there is how can we work closely with the likes of yourselves and other podcasts out there, and maybe try and do content creation that way. And then develop the platform, because at the moment it's all highlights, reruns of the game and things like that, that there's no really any substance beyond that. And it's always good to go back and look through these games, but if we were able to create these 10, 20-minute pieces, then I think we'd get a lot more traction and have a lot more subscribers.
You're entering the dangerous territory there, inviting us and long bangers and the like to get involved in that, because I'm not sure we'd. I'm not sure we'd meet the PG guidelines.
I think it would be wrong for me not to say. I think like what you're saying sounds really promising. I think probably our listeners that have maybe listened throughout the season have probably heard, probably me especially more than other guys saying, "Oh, wish we got a bit more during the week or that." And I think for a lot of fans maybe have felt that way. Again, I can only really speak for myself, but I think not being honest.
I can totally understand that. And believe it or not, at the start of the season, the hope was that we'd be able to do a magazine show once a week. The bit that hit us is we went through a number of consultations. We lost a lot of staff. And then even after that, I think all you guys are switched on. You all know what happens. We've lost a lot of staff thereafter as well. And from a comms and content perspective, it's pretty much a brand new team. So there's been a lot of change. So trying to get people up to speed and to try and keep everything moving, we've not been able to do as much as what we would have liked. And then to go external, like, there needs to be a strategy in place. It can't be a broken gesture. So hopefully now that we're stocking up on the staff, we've got a new head of comms and content who's been working remotely the last 3 weeks. He comes up to Edinburgh this week. We're out in the market for a new digital lead and another comms manager. So we'll have multi avenues for content, and then we can start sitting down over a coffee or a pint and chatting to guys like yourselves and saying, right, what support can you guys give us? Do we pick a day of the week where there's a podcast group come on and do the content? Because there's a lot of you guys out there that have got great ideas and like well connected. I do a lot of analysis, and I can see who the main influencers are from a Hibernian perspective, and there's a lot. But it just shows you it's an untapped market to help us at the club, and in terms of spreading the news and everything else. So that'll all come. Unfortunately, it's just time, and again, just with the lack of resource, I'm wearing many hats and spinning many plates at the minute. So it's just a case of trying to let plates not fall over and smash. But yeah, that'll definitely come.
Yeah, no, I know. Greg wants to come in and has a question or two, but I think that all sounds really promising. I think everyone understands as well, but I think what you've said as well throughout this is how open the club have been, and I think probably prior to relegation and maybe before Leanne came into the club, we would never have even been able to have this conversation like that with the club, and I think that it's unbelievable. And I think, again, speaking probably on behalf of all three of us, even with AGM and stuff, and even if you look at it from a more plain set point of view, the way that guys like yourself and obviously Ron and Jack and that are running the club, I think Hibs fans are really comfortable now and knowing that we're in safe hands. And I think right now we are very much like, we believe everything that you say. Like I think we probably do appreciate the open and honesty.
It's great to hear, and we will always continue to be that way. And if anybody's ever got any questions, like my email address is out there anyway, so anybody can never always get in touch.
Obviously, as fans, we're extremely nosy and always want to know what's happening. For us, is there any exciting developments that you can share at the moment for kind of towards the end of this season and next season?
In terms of exciting plans, like I touched on the big screens, which isn't really anything secret. I think obviously Ron talked about that in his strategic plan a year ago. And obviously through COVID, they've had to take a bit of a slow burn, but myself and the new head of finance have been working on that over the last few weeks, so we're pretty much there. So they should be in place for the start of the season. And that will hopefully just be the start of a bit of a digitisation of the stadium to improve the customer experience. So to improve the fan experience as a whole, and to make it a more enjoyable occasion. So obviously the PA system's been done, so you'll actually hear who's playing. So that'll be good. So I think you'll notice a difference in those two areas alone when you come back. Obviously, the one that we done a year ago, you guys wouldn't have been able to use your bank card at kiosk, but now will be a contactless stadium in a cashless environment. So we took the kiosk back over. So that'll be interesting development for the fans when they come back. So that'll be something else to sample. I'm not going to put my neck on the line, but I'm very, very confident that we'll have a new front of shirt sponsor for next season. There's been 3 very strong conversations happening over the last few weeks. So without saying that there's definitely going to be one, I'm very confident that one of the 3 will come through, which will be good. Very good for us. A couple of other big announcements come up, so there's a fair bit of news to come out of the club over the next few weeks. Some of that will be renewals of existing partners. There's another deal that was done today for next season, and then a couple of big deals for next season. One of them that I'm really excited about. So, in fact, out of so what date are we at? 26th. I reckon that within the next 3-4 weeks there will be 1, 2, 3 big announcements. So, and I'd like to think that they'll all be well received by the fans.
Hopefully one of those will be that we've won the Scottish Cup. But
well, yeah, so make that 4. or did I say 3 weeks? That falls just shy of it. So
no pressure, Jack.
Yeah. You'll find out notifications before it happens anyway.
No, but I think I think it all sounds incredibly positive, and like I say again, I think especially the 3 of us, and I know Harry, who couldn't join us tonight, he's very much into the business and marketing side of sport as his career, and then he's very, very happy with where the club are as well. But I think should we bring it back to the product on the park and talk about what happened on Saturday?
Well, before we do that, can I ask just your thoughts? So one thing that we've obviously done over the last 12 months was a little dip in the toe in the water with the retail and how we moved the store. But we took over a little satellite store in the Gael. It worked well for us, and that's a bit of an indication of some of the work that we want to do as a club to spread the brand value. And I think that when you look at the data analysts, they tell you that we actually have a high propensity of season ticket holders and fans in the west side of the city. Is that something that you guys would like to see more of?
So I live about 10 minutes away from the Gael, and my pal's brother and sister both worked in the shop, so it was nice to have a shop so close by and some friendly faces. Sometimes I feel like Hibs fans out here are a bit outnumbered with another club, but yeah, I think it's definitely more accessible for people across this side of the city, rather than having to go all the way into town or whatever and down to Leith. But I think it's such a good idea. I know it was only there a couple of weeks, but it was always busy when I passed by or when I went in. So I think for the club, it was a bit of a master stroke, really, and it's definitely something I'd like to see more of.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I'm Livingston based, so I mean, it has always, I guess, been something that if you wanted to buy something from to do with Hibs, it had to be obviously online or on match day, and then it's like if you're going out after the game or that, I think it was huge. I think unfortunately I didn't manage to get along to the shop. I wanted to, but I think at the time Livingston got placed into Tier 4 restrictions. So I sent Greg. Greg got sent along a few times for me to sort Christmas presents and stuff. I think it's massive, and I think it's, for me personally, it makes sense. I'm not involved in any, but just seeing a Hibs badge in other places other than at the club can only be a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
That's part of the big thing for us, is to try and spread the brand, because I think, to your point, Greg, that I'm on the west side of the city as well, and to get across the city and into Leith, like, you need to have a really strong, compelling argument to actually get in the car or on a bus and head over there. So just giving fans that flexibility and option. And as I say, there's a lot of Hibs fans out there that the store was busy. It was always busy.
I think the one for me would be if we get into Edinburgh Airport, and because I think it's JD Sports that are in Edinburgh Airport at the moment. And I always think to myself, if you're a tourist coming in, or more likely even going out, and actually you want to buy something, and you're a football fan, and it's a keepsake from Edinburgh, they've got that awful Harry Potter shop that's in the Edinburgh Airport. Could they not have just a wee little mini stall with Hibs stuff, like the Hibs tartan scarf, for example? All of those kind of things. I think those things would sell really well in the airport, but I think it's obviously quite a tough market to crack.
It's the airport's one that we've definitely got our eye on. That we need to be trying to do something. Obviously, not a lot of traffic coming through the airport at the minute, unfortunately. But the airport's one, and I think I'd love to get closer to the international festival. I think we've all been on holidays abroad where if you go to Madrid, you're finding out if Atletico are at home or Real are at home. If you're in Barcelona, is Espanyol at home or is it Barca? And I think that's a market that we need to be. Edinburgh is one of the biggest tourist destinations in Europe, so we need to be doing far better in that sector as well. So they're all longer term projects, but we'll absolutely look to get there.
We'll be at the airport a lot in the next few months, hopefully.
Hope so.
Again, I think the airport's a big thing as well. People always want souvenirs to take back to family and friends and whatever. So, yeah.
And no one knew you'd have forgot something. So having a Hibs shop there would be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. That's me all over. So
Hibs. Well, we made it interesting, shall we say, on Saturday. Greg, do you go to the? Can you go to the games? Yeah. So what was it like being? What was it like being in the stadium at the 82nd minute when Motherwell made it 2-1?
I still felt confident. I thought that we played really, really well for the first 80 minutes. I thought that especially the first 35 minutes of the second half. I thought we were very good. A bit like the first half against Livingston, I thought they were excellent. That probably the best 45 minutes of the season at the start of that game. But no, I still felt confident, and I think Jack touched on it that we're a very good front running team, and you always thought that we'd more than likely score again because we're getting no opportunity. But yeah, unfortunately it didn't pan out that way, but then fortunately it all come back and worked out well in the end.
It's better that way anyway. The emotion at the end of the penalty shootout is different level. Greg, what did you make of the game overall?
I kind of guessed it was me, but yeah, I thought that we were very good. Obviously Motherwell had a spell in the second half, but we weathered that and got ourselves ahead, and then got a second, and for there on I thought, this is a scoosh, we'll see this through no problem. Game management this season's been pretty good, and then obviously the two goals came in. I guess from a positive point of view, you've got to look at the character to come back and make it through extra time, and then the nerve to step up and take a penalty, especially Kevin Nisbet, to be fair, who's had his problems with that this season. I know he missed, but it's a team game, and his colleagues helped him out big time. So yeah, I think the positives there, that the character, obviously a very confident side at the moment. So yeah, look, we go again next weekend, and we look forward to the draw tonight.
Yeah, and Liam, just before we, like Greg says, before we talk about who we would maybe like in the semi-final and obviously the game next weekend, just wrap us up on this weekend's game, and then obviously Greg, we need to obviously let you go in. Thank you. Obviously, just before you do, thank you very much for coming on. But Liam, what did you make of the game?
I thought we were really, really good for 80 minutes. Actually, I thought it was a first half. It wasn't a huge amount in it, but I thought we certainly edged the first half. I thought we were really good for 80 minutes. I thought Doidge's goal was just extremely well taken. I've watched it over and over again. It's one of those headers that's just really satisfying because he kind of times his run, and the minute it comes off his head, you just know it's going into the back of the net. second goal was a good goal again. I think they got back into it with a really fortuitous cross. Let's call it what it was. It was a cross. It wasn't a shot. And then, you know, they leveled the game up. And I thought, for probably the majority of extra time, I thought, in a lot of respects, that I just wanted penalties to come, because it didn't really look like we were gonna get that third goal. And I think it is really difficult when you've been pegged back from 2-0 in such kind of unfortunate circumstances to then go and find the energy to go again in extra time. But then when penalties came and I saw kind of each penalty taker step up, and I'm a great believer in the psychology of football, I always think that you can tell whether a guy's going to score or not from his walk up. And clearly I don't get it right every single time. But when Porteous steps up, I had absolutely every confidence in the world he's scoring. He's just the kind of guy, and we love him for it. He's gallus. He's a confident young guy. He knows what he's going to do. He's made his mind up, and he just sends the keeper the wrong way. And it was just perfect. And especially, because I know he's not been short of doubters this season. I think just for him to stroke home the winning penalty was just a really nice moment for him. And I'm sure we all loved it, because I loved it.
I thought Ryan had a great game overall. He's a fantastic footballer. Never mind just a centre half. He's fantastic with the ball at his feet. And I actually thought that the three guys that came on during the extra time as well all added. I think when they came on, it's the difference, the fresh legs, the energy. Yeah. And keep it apart from a great save by the keeper from Martin. It could have been done in extra time, but it's all about getting the name in the hat for the next round, as we've seen yesterday. Some favourites not making it that far. So we got our name in the hat, and that was the main thing.
Absolutely. Well, Greg, thank you very much for joining us. Like I say, I know you've got to shoot off to personal and just not us responsibilities. But thank you very much for coming on and giving us your time tonight.
Pleasure.
Thanks very much, Greg.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys.
Cheers. So yeah, as Greg mentioned, some of the favourites did go out yesterday. Once again, leaving Hibs as the highest ranking club in a cup semi-final. It'll be obviously ourselves, St Johnstone, Dundee United, and then either the winner of St Mirren or Kilmarnock, which kicks off in 5 minutes' time as we're recording. We've spoke about, do we trust Hibs to win the cup, to see if we can't get the group stage European football? Well, now it's down to us. How did you feel last night when Zander Clark scored?
Very strange.
I was elated.
I think everyone had that moment where they turned into a 6-year-old and went fucking nuts. And it was stupid. I was in my room watching it. My mum and my sister were downstairs. My stepdad was in his room watching it, and it was like you just heard this chain of yes, the keeper scored. It was like. But then the reality set in that we went for a 50-50 chance to it's on us. And do you know what? I'm gonna put myself out there, and I've seen various people say, "Oh, are Hibs favourites? Are we not?" Hibs are favourites. We are. Let's just accept the tag. You don't need to downplay it. Jack Ross will downplay it. The players will play it, and rightly so. But Hibs are the favourites. We are the best team left in the competition, and it's up to us to go and win it, as far as I'm concerned. I don't care who we get in the semi-final, and then we go from there. What it does say to me is St Johnstone at the weekend is not so important now, because, well, it's still important, but if we had the ultimate collapse, I'm pretty sure third and fourth place actually get you the same. Pretty sure you go both into the second round of the conference. So obviously it's still really important that we finish third. Greg, would you have any preference for semi-final?
Nope. We need to right the wrongs of the last two, though. That's all I would say. We've got a massive opportunity here to probably prove a lot of people wrong. It's the Scottish Cup, it's Hibs. We've got a massive opportunity here. We don't need to rely on anyone else. We can do it ourselves. The prize at the end of that's massive and well worthy of what we could do if we win it. So for me, I wasn't really overly bothered that Rangers went out last night. It just means that we can now focus on ourselves and we can do it ourselves without relying on anyone else doing it for us. So it's time to put the big boy pants on, I think. And going back to Xander Clark's going to goal, you wouldn't get that in the European Super League. So there we go.
Exactly, my man. And Liam, do you sort of just echo that? No preference for semi-final, or do you have a preference?
Just touching on the quarterfinals yesterday, did anyone see how bad Aberdeen were? So Derek McInnes at Aberdeen, right? They were brutal to watch. They were attritional, but they would go and beat teams that were worse than them, generally by a goal to nil. What Stephen Glass has done is he's taken the Derek McInnes team and he's tried to get 2 full-backs to play essentially as wingers, and he's got 2 centre-halves that look so exposed with just 2 at the back. So the one thing that Aberdeen were good at was defending. They're now no good at defending. So they that game against Dundee United yesterday, they were lucky just to walk away with 3-0 defeat because they were miles off it. And then I thought the Rangers game was a funny one because great for St Johnstone, they've got through. Absolutely deserve what they got. But, I think the reaction from most was a bit of, I am blighted Rangers, right? Because it's Rangers, but actually that does make life difficult for us in terms of Europe. It means that we've got to go and do things. And I think you're right, we are favourites. I think the bookies yesterday kind of had, after it was all kind of out, had a sort of joint with St Johnstone as favourites. I think we're now kind of sole favourites. And I think that's right. I think that's right that we're favourites. But St Johnstone, I heard yesterday, have lost 1 of their last 25 games. So they're a side who are coming into it with a lot of form. I think they've got three really outstanding players in Kerr, McCann and Rooney, who would get into probably most teams outside of the top 2 in Scotland. And they will be a really difficult team to beat, should we have to beat them in order to win the tournament. But I think the other 2 in the draw, Dundee United and St Mirren or Kilmarnock, I'm less worried about them, having seen them up close plenty of times this season. I think St Johnstone, on current form, are the team to beat, because I think they're one of the form teams in the top 6. If you look at the run they've been on to get where they are, and they were bottom of the league after 10 games this season or something like that. So to be where they are now is impressive.
Yeah, there was. I can't remember if we lost a game recently, but there was a stat. I think it was when we went up to Perth just before the split, and they'd only lost to Celtic and Rangers since Boxing Day. And very reminiscent of probably us first season back up in terms of the end of season charge. Definitely a team to be wary of, and that leads us in nicely to this weekend's game against St Johnstone at Easter Road. A win, better Aberdeen's result away to Livingston, but what are we, six clear than now with 9 to go. A win with our goal difference pretty much secures 3rd place. We haven't dropped out the top 4 all season, and we won't drop out the top 4 all season, which I think is something that we need to be very proud of. I don't think we mentioned it last week after the Motherwell game just because of the quick turnaround for recording the podcast and stuff, but I think that shows incredible consistency in this team all season. Greg and we spoke about on the golf course yesterday, and there has been some highs and there's been plenty of highs and there's been some low points in the season, but we've responded extremely well to that. And to not drop out the top 4 all season is remarkable as far as I'm concerned. And we spent a good few weeks in 2nd at the start of the season, and I don't think we spent all that many weeks in 4th sort of January time. So very well done to Hibs there. What do you expect? On to this weekend's game, Greg. We are effectively 3 points away. What do you expect this weekend?
It's a team that we've had a bit of an issue with this season. To be honest, I think we'll take a lot from the weekend's performance. That will give us a lot of confidence regardless of the way we won it. I think we'll keep pretty much the same team. I don't think there'll be any changes, if I'm honest, other than Marciano will come back in. But look, St Johnstone on a high, we're on a high. We should make for a good game of football, but I think if we start well, if we impose our style in the game and don't just play for one half of football, then we're laughing. I think we'll take the 3 points. And like I said to you yesterday, and I kind of said, look, we basically finished 7th last season. And this season, we've not been out of the top 4. I know I've had a go at him numerous times. Jack Ross seems to have woken up the last few weeks. He's very animated. He kicks every ball, certainly at the weekend. So, I think the consistency we've shown has been impressive, and that can't be downplayed at all. You know, we will get third. I don't think Aberdeen will do anything at the weekend, if I'm honest.
That game screams now, as far as I'm concerned. I think if there's going to be a winner, I think it will be Aberdeen. But I think that game screams now.
I mean, if Livy play the way they did in the second half against us, if they up it like that, then I think they could have Aberdeen for the taking. It's not a team up with confidence, so I think we'll get third this weekend, and then we need to. It is all eyes on the cup, and that can't be downplayed. That it's absolutely huge for us.
Liam, just obviously let us know what you're thinking about this weekend's game. But back at 2:30 on the first day of the season, if someone told you you'd be 6 points clear, going with 3 games to go in third place, Scottish Cup semi-final, I mean, you'd bite the hand off, wouldn't you? Is that not by definition a good cup run in third place is surely what Hibs are aiming for every season?
Season, I was really surprised because someone pointed me in the direction of a tweet that I made at the very start of the season. And you guys know I'm generally pretty glass half full. I'm a pretty positive guy, but I predicted we'd finish 5th in the league this season. I thought Aberdeen and Motherwell would finish above us. I thought Motherwell, just based on the squad they had at the beginning of the season, so before the ball was kicked, they still had Turnbull, Campbell, etc., and they'd been a really good side last season. So anyway, I won't try and justify that, but I think for my expectations for us to be 5th and us for it to ultimately be in the position of third, a cup run in the League Cup, which obviously didn't end satisfactorily, we all know that, but an opportunity in the Scottish Cup to put that right all day long, I'd bit your hand off the position that we're in this season. And clearly the sour note from this season is we've not had the opportunity to be at the games, because this was this season, I think, more than most, with something to play for going into May. Would have been brilliant to have been at games. We've not had that opportunity, but I think the Scottish Cup for us is massive. To potentially put ourselves in a position where we've got a chance of winning that competition. For only the second time in 119 years would be special. Would be really special. Fans or no fans, and I think this is a team. This is a team that I can get behind. Like, this is a team that I can watch. This is a team full of. This isn't a team full of mercenaries. This is a team full of honest Scottish pros, good guys who I think they're given all they've got at the moment. All I would ask is that they do that for another 5 games this season and see where that leads us to.
Yeah, and I think, again, probably on the back of what we said to Greg earlier on, I think that comes down top to bottom throughout the club right now. Again, I'm sure there's people out there that aren't happy with the product that they've been given this year, or in terms of season ticket deals or the match, but I think the transparency that's coming out of high levels of the club just now, like, let's make no mistake, we've just had a massive influence, like a big player at the club on this shitty little podcast, like, you know what I mean, and the transparency that he gave us. I think, like you said, the team is something you can get behind, but I think the full club right now is something that we can get behind. And I mean, last summer, if someone told me we were going to sign Kevin Nisbet, well, I did. I said, there's no danger we're signing Kevin Nisbet. We can't afford it. Like we're in a pandemic. We're not paying the money, and we did. And we're going to see the benefits of that. We have seen the benefits of it, and there's a fair chance we'll see the benefits of it this summer in our bank balance. And then I'm very confident that we'll go and replace Kevin Nisbet. So, other than that, I mean, all things are rosy in the garden, and these do tend to go a bit shorter. And our match previews, etc., do go a bit shorter when all things are rosy. It's a weird situation to be in, and by no means do we. I mean, hey, if our podcasts are shorter every week because Hibs are doing well, so it's fantastic. Greg, highlight of the week.
Probably Porteous for stepping up and taking the winning penalty. Really, I'm on the camera, not happy with that one. But yeah, I would think a lot of balls to go up and take the penalty. Good game as well, very solid. Slotted at home, and he wasn't. I would say he was very animated about winning the shootout. The way he scored the penalty, so he was very much I'm the man, and I love that sort of mentality. So yeah, well played.
Yeah, I think everything. On you go, man.
I was about to just jump in on my IB of the week shout, so I'll let you link this all back together so beautifully as you're about to do.
No, I think like that. Porteous, like Greg said there about the confidence, and I think there's always a fine line, I guess, in life, never mind football, between confidence and arrogance. And I think this season, especially and recently, Ryan Porteous has nailed that line to like perfection. He's played a really good season. I think that's reflected in the interest that there was in January. And I think an arrogant player wouldn't have responded the way he did. How did Ryan Porteous respond? He sat his arse on the bench for a game and a half, and he came off the bench and scored a winning goal. He's had the balls to step up and take a penalty. And the fifth penalty, the one that's pretty much going to win. And do you know what? I'm sure he probably did think, right, I'm taking the fifth penalty. And I don't mind that. In fact, I fucking love that, the same as you, Greg. So, I mean, I think on this podcast, we've maybe been quite critical at times this season as well, but I think he's been superb. And hopefully he's here for the long haul. But Liam, who is your high being? I know you were desperate.
As someone who's not being critical of Ryan Porteous, I'd just like to highlight his challenge in the 98th minute as well, when the Motherwell player was right through on goal and he just absolutely throws his whole body to block the shot. It was just an absolutely brilliant bit of last-ditch defending. See that kind of last-ditch defending, that's worth a goal at the other end as well. Like that to me is just exactly why you've got defenders there to do a job like that. It was just brilliant bit of football. But my High B of the Week nomination is a wee bit of a controversial one because he's not a Hibs player nor is he an employee of the club. But I would just like to nominate Jason Kerr for his performance against Rangers at the weekend. I think it's pretty well known that Jason Kerr is a Hibs fan. I think it's pretty well known Jason Kerr is a Hibs fan, and I think we might potentially have an opening at centre back coming up in the summer. So just for the attention of Mr. R. Gordon, if you wouldn't mind just seeing this High B of the Week nomination, because I thought his performance yesterday, out of all the players in St Johnstone team, I thought he was the one that really stood out. Just defends much in the way that Porteous does, where he puts his body on the line, throws himself in there, but he's more than that as a defender. As a right side of the centre back, he's comfortable on the ball, he can take out defence, he can make passes. I think he's a real class act, and I thought his performance yesterday deserved commendation, and it's always nice to see someone just sticking it right to them.
Alan McGregor in particular, he was trying to get in his seat and he just fucking rattled it. I think it was Jason Kerr left the ball on the line, and what a fucking arsehole. Anyway,
he's only the goalie scored past him. That's all that is.
I think for me, I think this one might not more controversial, but to be honest, I don't expect it to win. I think there might even be some backlash, but I thought Paul McGinn was outstanding at the weekend. I really did.
I'm going to say that after that chat yesterday.
We've been critical of Paul McGinn in the last few weeks, and I think, I think leading up to the last few weeks, but I think probably since Rangers away, I think he's been very, very good. He obviously got the assist at Ibrox, and then yesterday I thought he was superb. On Saturday I thought he was superb. Sportscene done a big bit of analysis over our wing backs, and well, it ended up being and Paul McGinn got forward that much that he was included in the conversation about our wing backs, and he's playing at right-sided centre half. Unbelievable cross in for Christian Doidge, and I think I'd echo what Greg said. I thought the full-back, we conceded 2 goals in the last 10 minutes, but I thought the full-back 3 were really good at the weekend, and when I was watching it hungover on Sunday as a rerun.
Just a shout out as well, because we've not mentioned them in the review of the performance, but Alex Gogic for 119 minutes on Saturday was absolutely immense. Like, covered every single blade of grass, does what Gogic does well, breaks up the play, busy, gets in people's faces. I'm sure if Harry was here, he would definitely have nominated Gogic, so I'm just stepping in for Harry and playing that card.
I think we'll just throw in Gogic as a 4th nomination on behalf of Harry. I'm sure if we texted him right now, he would respond and say, yes, that is my nomination. I think you're spot on, Liam. And I think you're starting to see the I think you've probably seen it all year, but you're saying about breaking up play and stuff, but the amount of second balls Alex Gogic hovers up, maybe if Hibs have went direct, they've won the header and it's coming back. But Gogic is 9 times out of 10 the player on the park that wins that ball. And he will give it to Irvin. And I shout out to Jackson Irvin finally getting a Hibs goal this first week that I never put him on my fucking bet. But
there we go.
It was offside, but we take them. And I'm going to be honest. See if he never scored there. Like, if Hibs didn't score, we'd have won that game 1-0. I was, you know what I mean? Like, I think the fact Motherwell then scored straight after obviously flips it. But Yeah, my high of the week's going to be Paul McGinn. We'll nominate Alex Gogic for Harry, and if he doesn't like that, then we'd need to check his.
Then he should have turned up.
Tough shit, and we probably need to check his heart rate and stuff, because that boy just adores that man. But
I've got two shout outs as well. I've been critical of these two players a lot this season.
The full team.
What?
The full team.
Yes, Jack Ross as well. But no, I think that Gogic was very good at the weekend. The only mistake he made was the touch and the tackle for his first booking. Other than that, he was solid. And Paul Hanlon as well. You talk about Paul McGinn getting forward. Paul Hanlon gets forward as well. So you've got the two centre halves out of the three that are really getting forward and trying to join in. And that's the sort of football I love to see. It's very fluid. Paul Hanlon is. I've never thought he was a defender. I always thought he was more of a midfielder. So yeah, I think that we've got a very fluid team, and we're finally playing the football I want to see. So thank you, Jack.
It's interesting, Greg. You say about playing the football that you want us to see, and maybe this will just be the final point of tonight's podcast. We know we've been on for fucking ages. People have been fairly critical all season of Hibs maybe starting slowly or ending slowly. And look, I know we threw away a lead at the weekend, and I know against Livy they came into it in the second half, but we mentioned it after the Livy game around the fast start. I know we didn't score till the second half, but I thought we started with a tempo that was just, and I think it's been this way since the Queen of the South game. Just how big do you think that has been for us in the last, what would you say, month?
I think the start we made at the weekend was so impressive, and I guess the old adage of we've seen this play out before where Hibs are on top and don't score, but we're on top with a purpose, and we don't just knock the ball about for the sake of it. There's always a thought of, we'll get this in the box, we get this out wide. So yeah, I think the way we start the games is crucial. I think there has been times this season we've not started so well. Motherwell away and Celtic at home really would be the two that would stand out. But I think over the course of the season we've probably started games better. Started more games better than we've not. So yeah, look, we're quite a clinical team. Our three strikers, our 3-4 players have scored 43 goals between them now this season. How incredible is that? You've not just got one player chipping in. It's such a massive return, and it helps everyone out massively. Might not be getting as many goals from midfield, but the forward players are there to score the goals. So it's not a big issue for me. But I think the way we start the game, if we start with a purpose and knock the ball about, then it sets us up so well for the rest of the game.
Absolutely. Well, Liam, you can maybe kick off this very final segment. Score prediction for the weekend, and who will get the goals on the assumption that Hibs are scoring a goal on your prediction?
I think it's going to be a really tight game. On Saturday, as I said, I think we're going to edge it 2-1. And I think Jackson Irvine's going to score again, because I'm a great believer in players like that when they've gone a long time without scoring. I think they score and then they'll generally go in a little bit of a flurry, and I think he gets himself in the right positions to score. I think because I'm going to go with Jackson Irvine, and I'm going to go with Christian Doidge to continue scoring, because quite frankly that man just can't do anything wrong at the moment. Everything he's done with general play. I know. Oh, that cup reg. Did you see the stat yesterday about his record in cup games? It's incredible the run he's been on in the cup. So hopefully he can get one in the league as well. I think 2-1 Hibs.
For those who haven't seen it, Christian Doidge has only failed to either score or assist in one of the 9 Scottish Cup games that he's played for Hibs, which unbelievable for someone that people say doesn't score goals, doesn't assist goals. I think he's up to 12 for the season now, only a couple behind Kevin Nisbet and Martin Boyle. So it's come late in the season, but everyone knew it was coming at some point.
Because we lavished so much praise, because we kind of skipped through the game review, we didn't get the chance to lavish all the praise on all the players that was deserved for the weekend. So shout out to Doidge, shout out to everyone else as well.
And Greg, what's your score prediction for this weekend?
1-0 Hibs. I think it'll be very tight, very stuffy. I'll go 1-0 Hibs, and I'm going to back Joe Newell to get a goal this week.
You're brave.
I'm hoping this will be the week that he just does it.
I feel like when Joe Newell scores, it's going to be a fucking worldie. Like he's going to pass it in for about 40 yards.
Like
caress it with that left foot.
His goal against St Mirren was just lovely. It was poetry in motion.
It will be very pleasing on the eye when Joe Newell scores. That is one fact that we know. For me, I think it'll be a tight game, but I think we'll come out of it unscathed and overall fairly comfortably. I think we'll win 2-0. I think, again, I know we've conceded goals recently, but I've got confidence in the defence, and I actually think they're playing quite well. And I mean, I think the goals at the weekend came more from other areas of the park, maybe not holding up their end of the bargain, especially the second one. But yeah, I'm going for 2-0, and our fabulous front three that didn't get in on the scoring at the weekend will get the goals this weekend, and it'll be Martin Boyle with another penalty, which Michael Stewart and BBC Sports Scotland and Stephen Thompson and Richard Foster will say dived for, and Kevin Nisbet will tap home at the second. I'm even saying that we'll go 1-0 up through a penalty for Martin Boyle. There you go. Well, any more lads for this week?
No, not from me.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed tonight's podcast. We know it is a bit of a longer one, but obviously we had a very, very good and very interesting and honest guest on with us and Greg McEwen. So thanks for listening this week. We'll be back next week or next Monday post the St Johnstone game. Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.